I'm Bill.
And I'm Candace. And we're the Disruptors. Well, Bill, I'm so glad you were able to make it to the show.
I don't want to even hear that.
No doctor's appointments?
None whatsoever. Mortician was out at lunch, so I didn't have that.
Yeah, but he was measuring you earlier.
Well, that's true, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that what he was measuring you for.
Well, that's true. I got a little nervous there when he started measuring, But anyway, no, I'm fine now. I'm fine.
Well,
no
you know what? Speaking of measurements and building coffins,
we hadn't spoke of that.
We actually have someone in the studio that can do that.
Well, that's right. I never thought of that. So you go ahead and oh boy, this is exciting. Introduce Scott.
Yes. So actually, I want to introduce Bill to Scott Harvey of Solutions by Scott, as Scott can take your measurements next. So we make sure to get a luxury model of something to throw dirt on.
Nice.
Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. We'll build him a good one. Yes.
Yes. Very solid box. Yes.
Oh, you played into that really good,
Ollie.
I
know. That's okay. The show has just started. But anyway, let's talk about home improvements and stuff that Scott does.
Hey, it's springtime.
Yes, it is.
People start thinking about, because they've been cooped up all winter in their home. They're like, I don't like that anymore.
Yep.
They get the itch, so they can start calling Scott.
Absolutely.
And what are some projects that you like to do?
Oh, I love a lot of deck repair, deck building, do a lot of wood trim, pressure washing, all kinds of stuff. But I like the things that are a little complicated and have to think a little bit. I love the solutions part of my name, where it's not obvious immediately what to do. And to sit there and talk to someone and say, hey, let's do it this way.
Yeah.
So how did you get started?
Well, honestly, I mean, years ago as a kid, my dad taught me not to be afraid of a house, that there's not much you can do to a house that you're going to actually destroy it. You can fix it. And the other thing he taught me was a good carpenter hides his mistakes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and when I hide it, I don't mean like cover it up so you don't see it, but you can fix it, And,
sure.
And so that was really it. So I've been doing stuff a long time, but in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It's fairly new out here for me. I've been out here about a year and a half.
Oh, you're a transplant.
Yep, I am.
Oh, well, what brought you to Washington?
Welcome to the state.
Thank you.
We're not welcoming you.
Would the governor make you a welcoming committee or something?
No, just tax me.
Okay, just tax me.
Yeah, my wife had passed away in Pennsylvania. And then I met Mary, my wife now, online, and she's out here. And we went back and forth trying to figure out what made sense. It seemed to make more sense for me to come her way. So
well, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's really neat.
That is neat. Yes.
It's even romantic. It's got a romantic, tone to it.
It's nice. And I've always said I'm grateful for the internet because I would have never bumped into her anywhere.
Sure.
So off the internet.
Yep.
He didn't hear one of our shows about Facebook romance, I can tell already.
Bill did that because he's always got the individual soliciting.
Let's start at the beginning. Bill did that simply because, yes, there are so many cons working Facebook.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it was for money. So, yes, I did do that show. So I'll be quiet now. Go ahead.
We're here to talk about Scott and his solutions.
Yeah, that's true. So that's...
Not you and your lack of dating skills.
We had that program also, and she was really quite good. Yes. She cured me. But go ahead, please. Talk more about what's going on in decks and
what
stuff.
do you find rewarding?
I honestly, seeing the smile on people's faces is really the best, and knowing you've given them either more comfort or a more secure home. You've lowered their heating bills, things like that, and in many cases, even if they're getting a house on the market, it helps them sell it faster at a better price. So, I've often said in the long run, my services don't actually cost them anything because they get it back.
You bet.
When they sell it, so.
We need a deck. I've been looking at that because I want to put a jacuzzi out there.
Oh, good idea, Candace.
Do you find that happening quite a bit, or
putting jacuzzis on the deck?
Yes.
No. I haven't had much.
No.
I did tear out a deck or partially repair a deck where they took a hot tub out, and then I put the rest of it back together. It was a hexagonal hot tub they took out, so that was a challenge putting the wood back in to match it back up and everything.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, it was fun.
That would be tough.
It was a challenge. So
that's a lot of angles.
It was a whole lot of angles.
Yeah. But it's angles. For you layman people, we'll talk with you later. Where are you putting this deck at? So you can raise ducks or what?
No. There's a deck already out there. I want to enhance what we have and put a jacuzzi tub up there.
Chainsaw in 5 minutes and we can enhance what you have.
Listen, That's not in the ghetto hood that you live in.
No.
That would be down the street.
I'll be
where
nice now.
the FDA show up.
There you go.
The feds.
I'll be
local police
quiet
officer.
now. I'm moving right along with the program. So you do all sorts of just simple remodeling type stuff, mill trim, a little bit of that, and decks and a little bit of that and stuff of that nature.
Drywall, I often say if I can lift it, I can do it. If it takes two people, I'm really not the right one. That's more you want a bigger business typically. I wouldn't mind eventually having a crew, but at this point, that's not where I'm at. So a little bit of everything.
Just a little area.
I've actually seen some of Scott's work.
Oh, good.
And it's absolutely beautiful. The transformations that he's able to cultivate is nothing less than brilliant.
Ah, wow.
Thank you.
That's very good. That's quite a compliment coming from, the
We should
fans.
give your landlord his number.
He would be working there forever. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So whatever kind of, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now, as you're now a new Washingtonian, of course?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would love to have a crew in 5 years. So we have a small crew. I'm really good at teaching people stuff. So I would love to have some people, whether it's skilled or not, and just help them learn the business and what to do. I'm not even the business as much as the actual repair kind of stuff and building kind of stuff. That's what I would foresee in 5 years down the road.
Absolute Ministries. Didn't we have them on the show?
Yes, we did. Why?
Because I just think that would be a good fit.
I'm familiar with their name. I forget why I know him from something though. But
Okay.
I'm trying to think of his first name. Yes, he was on the show.
Cameron,
yes. He was on the show. Was a very interesting fellow. And that might be a good deal. Absolutely. Wondered because he talked to me about, and I have to stop for a second, he had talked to me about one of the gentlemen that he has in his group that's gone through the studies was going to start podcasting for Absolute Ministries. Did you like that? I'm not even Italian and I speak with my hands.
Suddenly Bill is possessed by a wandering hand that's flying through the air with the greatest of ease.
But it would be really interesting to see what he's doing now. So what kind of, what do you look for and how do you advertise? How do you get out to the people that you're available? What do you look for in a job, if you can do it or not?
Well, first of all, it's all word of mouth now. I'm in some different networking situations, and business cards get passed out occasionally, but that's the two things. But really, most of the time, I get a call from someone, and they're asking about specific things, and so I did an estimate, or I looked at a thing for a fence this morning. I went out after the network meeting, actually, and but she called. She was looking for a fence and two other things. The other two things are things I don't do, but I have a number for someone. I said, here, I can pass someone on to that. So most of the time when I'm getting a contact, it's either an email, a text, or a phone call, and they're asking about what do I do.
What do I do?
So it's usually not like just somebody calling, wondering what do you do, but like, here's something I have. Do you do this kind of thing?
Oh, okay. Well, then yes. So it's good referral. That's really strong. What do you find different between the market back in Pennsylvania versus what's going on here in the West Coast?
Well, and it's big. I would say, first of all, it's much more expensive out here, but you can charge more then too. But someone told me you had to watch for fraud out here, and I said, fraud? Because I did 35 years of a commercial photographer and this kind of business, and almost everything was a handshake, even in New York City. Never had any problem except one $15 print that someone never paid me for. So weird for me to be told that, like, yeah, you got to watch for fraud. So I do need to be careful who I work for. And sometimes you have that gut feeling, I don't think this is going to go well or something like that. But I have run into a couple small, not big stuff, but a couple situations where someone's hasn't been very straight with me. So it's a little interesting.
Are you filed as a general contractor in the state, or
I'm a licensed general contractor, but
okay.
I really don't compete with the general contractors because again, I'm really doing stuff they don't even want to do. It's nice to know the general contractor, some of the bigger ones, and often I will go look at something, and if a job's getting bigger and bigger, I can refer someone to that. So that happens a lot of times too. So we really don't compete. They don't look at me in competition. I'm not. I usually fill in stuff they don't even want to do, for the most part.
And you are an expert at honey-do lists.
Yes.
That's so I've heard.
Yeah, and actually, I was telling Bill a little bit before that I sometimes call myself a marriage therapist with a hammer.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And the hammer isn't for hitting the husband, but I have had that where, someone said, "Thank you so much. My wife is so happy."
Yeah.
So
I can go home now. Yeah.
And I like, it doesn't always happen, but a lot of times I can come up with a different way of doing something that saves someone money. Somebody had a stain on their ceiling. They wanted to take out a 4x4 section, and I said, I could do that, but I said, really, your problem's here. It's like a small section, and I said, I'm gonna have to tape it and everything else to go bigger. I saved them about $400. They were so happy, and I said, I think it actually might look better if I do it that way than the way you want it. And they were ecstatic when it was done. So
you really specialize in what I call a home real projects that come up in the home.
Yes.
That you really don't want to call a general contractor for.
Right.
But you don't, the husband doesn't have time or he doesn't know what a hammer is for. And
I get both those.
You get both
people
those?
that don't know what they're doing, and I have some people that sometimes I have to get called in because they didn't know what they're doing. They tried anyway, and they really messed it up. Now they need somebody to come
you need a general.
Now it's really cha-ching, cha-ching.
Well, not necessarily, but you need him to rescue him at least.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I always thought that if you walked into a home and the ceiling is on the floor, that there was something that they probably should not have got involved in.
That's not a good
trying
sign.
to save $1.
That is not a good sign.
Yes, I think that would be a good starting point. Yeah. Do you do anything like insulation plumbing or any of that other?
I do very minor plumbing. It depends. Yeah, very minor. Like I can put a sink in, but usually even those. Usually, if there's, I don't just come in and do a sink install, but typically, again, there might be 12 things for a real estate agent or some of that. Sometimes I will call a plumber in to do the sink install. I'll do the rest of it and say, "Here, you take that." Because plumbing's not my strongest, and so it's not my most profitable then because they take longer than they should, than I would like to. I mean, so
sure.
I've never. I've worked with plumbers off and on, and it takes time. If you don't know what you're doing, you can slow way down. I can see where that's.
Well, and you get your head stuck under sinks a lot.
Yeah.
So they're getting uncomfortable positions. So
there's some, putting in garden tubs. I'm very familiar with that. The plumber that we won't mention.
Okay.
But I'm very familiar with the ups and downs of the plumbing industry. Yes.
Now I do get a lot of work in crawl spaces because nobody wants to go in crawl
Nobody
space.
wants to go in there.
And not particularly easy either. But you pay me, I'll be happy to do it. So I do a lot of that. And attics, same thing. People just don't want to. They just don't want to be in those spaces. So.
And when you're doing attics, you're doing for installation?
Yeah,
or
mostly installation would be typical, yeah. Exactly.
So that makes a big difference also. Nobody wants to go under a house. You don't know what's been down there or what's still there.
Well, now that I do know, I don't want to either. So I've had my face a little too close to rodent dung too many times.
Oh, that would be awful.
Yeah.
No, it gets worse, but it is bad. Yes,
I've had that happen. Yeah.
Especially if the donator is standing there staring back at you.
Yeah, that has not happened yet, but
I've had that once, and I have a lot of respect for rodents.
Yeah.
What kind of a specialty type stuff do you really enjoy doing and look for?
Wood's my favorite material, so I would say anything dealing with wood and a deck or a lot of house trim I get to. This is Washington. Everything rots.
Yes, it does.
And like I have to replace a chimney sheathing for someone. We talked about it because a lot of people use whiteboard out here, which just I don't know why. Like builders use it. It's cheap. But you use cedar or pressure treated, it'll last a whole lot longer than whiteboard and stuff. So in this case, I'm going to be replacing all the cladding on everything. And we talked about it. And you can get PVC trim now. It will never rot.
That's true.
So that's what she was ecstatic when I told her what I can do for you. Here's the price. And she was, that's wonderful. So that's really fun when that happens.
It really is. It really is. You get good referrals off of it also. Yeah. And it just... I think that when you said fraud in the state of Washington, yes, it is tough out here. Unfortunately, we have what's called a paper contractor. Now, that's a guy that gets his license that doesn't know a screwdriver from a hammer.
Which is true. You don't need to out here. You pay the money, you get your thing. There's no tests, so.
And no testing, no nothing.
Right.
A guy that has no idea about carpentry can go in and tear your house down and get away with it legally. Yeah. And that's scary. I don't care how you look at it. That's scary. Yeah. So and we've done years ago and throughout time, there's been many, many big scandals that the media has picked up.
Yeah.
And it's always saying, hey, check to make sure they're licensed, bonded, and they know what they're doing before they even talk